Ukraine just ripped open the skies over Crimea and burnt a Russian laser plane that Moscow had thought was untouchable. And while Russian television filled its screens with explosions over Kyiv, the real story was unfolding far from Ukrainian cities. In occupied Crimea, Ukrainian special forces hunted the radars that feed Russia's S-400 air defenses. In Russia's Rostov region, Ukrainian drones hit the Beriev plant where Russia upgrades its aircraft. Between November 21st and 23rd, we have seen an ongoing suppression campaign across Crimea. They are destroying the sensors that allow Russia to see over the Black Sea, to protect Sevastopol, and to shield the Black Sea fleet. Almost at the same time, long-range drones struck Taganrog airfield, setting a unique Soviet-era laser airplane on fire. One attack after another has been successful, but to hide that failure, the Kremlin turned up the noise. Russia fired 22 missiles and sent more than 460 Shahed drones towards Ukraine. Kyiv last night saw multiple attacks, as did Odessa and other cities. But some of those drones crossed the airspace into Moldova and also into NATO member Romania. Russia wants to show that it can strike anywhere, but today we're seeing it is Russia that is taking the beating. My name is Jason Smart. I'm a special correspondent for the Kyiv Post and a national security advisor. Last night was a very loud night here in Kyiv, Ukraine. There was a significant attack carried out by the Russians, and we did not get much sleep. But still, our resolve remains. Ukraine will win, and Russia will lose. So let's take a look at that. Let's look at these attacks that Ukraine has carried out, why they're so important, and how they could change the outcome of this war. But before you go ahead, just help us, please, with algorithms by liking this video, subscribing to this channel, and considering becoming a channel member today. So let's take a look at what's going on. So in the case of Taganrog, it's been pretty interesting because the Ukrainians there struck a very important aviation factory for the Russians. It's where they build the special mission planes and upgrade things like the Tu-95s, the strategic bombers. Those bombers were once a $270 million program, and that was to make them modern. But today, that factory is having some problems. The airfields there took some major hits. But there's something else that's more important. The bigger prize was the A-60 airborne laser laboratory parked on the nearby runway. To understand that target, you have to understand the Cold War and why this is so relevant. So in the late 1970s, as the United States explored Star Wars, the missile defense system that was never actually built. So to counter the Americans, the Soviets took an Ilyushin-76 transport frame and mounted a powerful gas dynamic laser and related systems all inside of it. The goal was to blind the enemy satellites and interfere or destroy any incoming missiles using direct energy. This program was called the A-60 program. Only 2 of these flying laboratories were ever produced. One of them has been sitting in Taganrog since 2021. But after the Ukrainian strike, heat signatures and images suggest that aircraft no longer exist. This is not a small loss for Russia. They cannot replace this airplane. They lack the money, they lack the technology. Today, that airplane is no more. In a single night, Ukraine deleted a piece of Soviet military history. Moscow had hoped to revive that program in the future, but today, that program is forever closed. But while the laser plane was burning in Rostov, the Black Sea Fleet was blinded in Crimea. In fact, we saw a number of attacks over the past few days, and the objective is simply to make sure that the Black Sea is something that Russia cannot control. We saw the attacks on the Ka-27 helicopters used for anti-submarine and patrol missions. That helicopter helps the fleet find threats in the waters and on the nearby coast. Its loss immediately weakens maritime awareness around Crimea. They also were able to hit an airfield radar near Sevastopol. They struck as well a long-range radar that was located in the area used specifically for high altitude and ballistic targets. Taking out these various radar systems across Crimea has only one objective: to make sure that today Russia doesn't see what's coming for them. And that's what they are effectively doing. H.G. Wells once wrote that once command of the air is obtained, war becomes a conflict between a seeing host and one that is blind. By destroying these radars, Ukraine has turned the Black Sea Fleet into the blind host in this description. Without these sensors, Russia cannot reliably track incoming missiles. They cannot track sea drones. Well, until it's too late. But that's exactly why Ukraine is doing it. It's not for the headlines. It's because they are surgically removing Russia's situational awareness around Crimea. And when radars go dark, The Black Sea Fleet does not see incoming danger. But Ukraine? It does. So Russia's effort to fight back from the blindness has turned into panic. In fact, in the case of Krasnodar region, Russia, around 150 Ukrainian drones targeted Russian infrastructure. In Novorossiysk, we saw that the Shishkeres oil terminal was also hit. Reports indicate that an S-400 launcher near Tuapse may have also been hit. Russian air defenses tried to respond over Novorossiysk and Gelendzhik as well in Tuapse. Their responses revealed serious cracks. Videos from those cities showed interceptors malfunctioning and explosions that were simply too low. This was not a calm layered defense. It looked like what it was: chaos. And that chaos means something, because when defenders panic, they waste missiles and still let some of the drones get through. Such panic, these responses reveal the angles and timings for the next wave of Ukrainian strikes. Ukraine studies every single interception and every single failure, and each mistake becomes a data point for the next operation. And on the ground, Ukraine is applying the same logic to its attack on Russian units. What we see is, again, that Ukraine is focused narrowly on how to take out Russia's logistics, how to make it impossible for Russia to continue fighting. By attacking within Russia and attacking around Pokrovsk, the objective is the same: that Ukraine shapes the battlefield. Russia doesn't do that. Russia focuses far more on tactics, the tactics needed for taking the next town. But that's not a long-term strategy. Without the basics, how can Russia hope to advance? But part of this is because today, the collapse of professional units has taken full steam in Russia. All the units are becoming amateur. But one of the problems that they have is the rot within the ranks of the Russian military. Look at the attacks that we've seen recently near Zaporizhia with the 108th Airborne Regiment of Russia. There we've seen the alcoholism that has absolutely become rampant. Some soldiers there have died from alcohol poisoning, and that is probably just to avoid combat. Commanders are using their intoxicated troops for suicidal assaults. They send them in to these fortified positions with really no chance of surviving. In effect, they're clearing out their own ranks with alcohol and bad orders. This is a dark echo of the Soviet Union's own decline. During the invasion of Afghanistan and the lost decade of the 1980s, vodka became the soldier's escape from this pointless war. Discipline, though, it evaporated, and the army rotted from the inside before the government could do anything to stop it. Today, we're seeing the same pattern emerge in Ukraine. The Russian troops are demoralized, they're doing badly, and they are turning heavily to drinking. And that's because their leadership, their military, is out of control. The situation's bad, and they can't do much to actually help the soldiers. Because, let's be honest, a breaking army is expensive, and Russia's money is under real strain. Russia's oil revenues are shrinking while its war costs continue to rise. Official projections show oil and gas revenues down 22% just in the past few months. It's about $100 billion not coming through. For November alone, budget revenues from oil and gas are expected to fall about 35% year over year. Part of this drop, though, comes from lower oil prices. But there's something else also going on. Sanctions are adding more pressure. Russia now pays far more to move its oil by sea. The cost of renting some of the supertankers has jumped by 576%. That works out to about $137,000 per day, which is sort of funny because Russia, it's working with its so-called friendly trade partners. But those trade partners don't have a problem isolating Russia. Chinese exporters have raised prices on military-related dual-use goods for Russia by about 87%. For other markets, their prices only rose by about 9% recently. But the cost of importing Chinese bearings into Russia is up 76%, while the volume of those bearings is down by about 13%. Turkish suppliers have raised the prices between 25 and 55%. That is because today, everybody understands doing business with Russia carries a heavy cost. It carries a very serious risk. So today, there is a shrinking budget that's not just strained, it's also got another problem. It is being looted. We see within Russia there has been one arrest after another of senior officials. But former defense minister Timur Ivanov, as you recall, he got 13 years in prison for deciding to embezzle the budget of the Ministry of Defense of Russia. Prosecutors are seeking his assets worth more than $15 million. He had luxury real estate and substantial stashes of cash in his house, but his holdings also included an apartment worth over $1.5 million. They include a house worth several $1 million as well. But the interesting part about all this is today he's saying that he cannot afford it. He is going to declare bankruptcy, but he has also volunteered to go to this special military operation, the one from which he had robbed so much money. But that's why today in Russia, things are never looking better. They're always looking somehow worse. We just saw that Russia tried to show power with 22 missiles and more than 460 drones. It scared civilians here in Kyiv and damaged infrastructure across the country. It pushed drones into Moldova and even into NATO airspace. But Ukraine has chosen a different path. Ukraine does not behave with this savagery. It hit the Beriev plant in Taganrog. It burned Russian bombers. It attacks things like Russian aircraft. It does not attack Russian civilians. We see how in Crimea it tore out the radars and the helicopters that protect the Black Sea Fleet, that anchor Russian control over the Black Sea. But on the ground, Ukrainian forces have wiped out logistics hubs and hunted saboteurs disguised as civilians. In Russia's army, they aren't doing that. They're too consumed with alcoholism, crashes, suicidal orders that are putting the military ever more under pressure. The Russian economy today is collapsing. They have significant problems, and it doesn't seem like they will be able to get through much longer. But that's why today Russia is so desperate for these talks. It's hoping that these peace talks will push off the sanctions, that somehow they can use this as leverage. And without sanctions, somehow they can get their footing back. And that's why today, more than ever, we should absolutely say no to lifting any sanctions from Russia. Russia deserves none. Russia is a terrorist state. And that's why today Ukraine is in the right, and history will show that. But that's why today, more than ever, we need to get the truth of the world of what has happened here. Because if they don't know, how can they support Ukraine? If they don't understand what Russia is doing, that Russia is actively against them, why would somebody support Ukraine? They must understand the truth of what's happening. And that's why today we must all do our part to make sure the truth about what's happening here in Ukraine reaches the larger world. Thank you for watching. Please help us get this video to more people by liking it, subscribing to this channel, sending this video to others, leaving your comments below, and considering becoming a channel member. And at the very end of this video, when the other options come open, please click on it. If you click that video, it really helps us with the algorithms of YouTube. As always, thank you for supporting Ukraine.